I know that God is in this place because we are here. I know that all is in perfect order because God is all there is. I come to this place humbled, clear, open, ready to receive whatever is mine to receive, ready to give whatever is mine to give, ready to act with that knowingness of the divine, to be in that dynamic flow of words and action, of energy, of love. I come to this place clear of who I am, as clear as I can be in this moment, to know the truth, to live in that truth, and to open up to that truth. And I know that we come together this night to awaken, to celebrate, to remember. And only good can come to us. Only good can move through us, for the divine is all there is. And that is the absolute essence of good. So as we center ourselves in this place at this time, we gratefully receive this evening together as the blessing that it is. We know the truth, we live it, we love it, and together we say, so it is. Jesse, hi everybody. David, that was all bold. You didn't need to check it. Welcome. Oh, look at all the people we created. Fantastic. Come on in. So Barbara is home resting at whatever level of comfort is supposed to do right now. And you're here with me. I'm really honored and blessed that you're here. Thank you for showing up. So Barbara has asked me to teach you about spiritual mind training. That is the affirmative prayer that we use exclusively in Science of Mind and Spirit. Now the deal is that I teach that on 8 consecutive nights. That's going to be interesting because we're going to give it all to you tonight, at least enough of it that you get a sense of what this is. How many of you have a regular spiritual practice of spiritual mind treatment? Okay, that's great, wonderful. Well, then what yours is to do tonight is to pick up some nuance, some little thing that maybe you didn't know before, so that you can act upon that and bring that into heightening your experience of spiritual mind treatment. But we're going to go through it as though nobody knows nothing. All right? But before we do that, we had this little thing that happened yesterday morning where we had an open invitation for anyone and everyone that was in the room to receive a blessing. Not from me, but to receive a blessing by knowing that a blessing is in your life. Now, I have a little knowledge, but not much knowledge of what might have happened. You don't have to share. We don't have a lot of time to do this, but if there is something remarkable and wonderful that has happened to you since noon yesterday that you would like to share, just raise your hand and David's going to bring you a mic real quick.
Pick me, pick me. Today, right about noon, I acquired what's a new car for me. So a 2013 Passat with only 36,000 miles on it. It's a big step up from 97 Saturn.
Anyone else want to share something? Yes.
Well, all summer long, I have been fighting this groundhog in my garden. My garden is very precious, and this groundhog has been a real pain in my ass. I mean, literally. And today, I just stood there and watched that groundhog and felt this calm over me, like, you know, there's plenty. There's plenty.
Wow.
I mean, it's big. I mean, you know, it's a big thing.
That is.
You got it. That's a blessing.
So,
Let's hear about it. Here. To David.
So I got up this morning and was doing some housework and paying bills and reading mail. And I opened up an envelope or started reading a piece of literature that was my escrow account for the mortgage. And it had come in the mail like Thursday or Friday last week, and I looked at it and threw it back on the account. And this morning I read it in detail, and there was a check attached for $341. And the thing was, the money was there before I asked. So.
That's right. But it wasn't in your conscious awareness until you made that clear that the blessing was yours. Good for you.
So I'm writing a book, and I want.
David, what's going on with the mic? You know? Okay. It's going on and off, I think.
It's on.
It's unidirectionally set. Speak loudly. Very directional.
So
There it is. There it is.
Hi. So I am writing a book, and this morning I launched a Kickstarter funding campaign to publish the book. And in less than 7 hours, we raised over $1,000.
Yay!
29 days to go.
Anybody else real quick? 'Cause, Jane, something happened between yesterday and today?
Yeah.
Excellent. I want to hear it. Stand up.
Oh, okay.
Say it in the mic.
My car, poor soul.
In the mic. In the mic.
Oh. Here we go. Okay. Where are you? Well, I'm so loud, I think you can hear me, can't you? And it's nothing too much. But my car, it kind of broke down yesterday, and every time I put on the brakes, it went like that. So,
Okay, we don't have time for a lot of story,
No.
just bottom line.
Okay, so bottom line, I had to do something, and I took it to the garage, and before I knew it, they fixed it, just boom, like that. I didn't have to wait.
They fix it like that?
Yes.
That's a blessing. Very nice, Jane, thank you.
That's
You
okay.
good? All right, that's just the beginning. I'm not going to do this, but my guess is those of you that were there yesterday and are participating in this process, it's a 48-hour process. It goes through 12 o'clock tomorrow, noon tomorrow. And my guess is those of you that haven't yet received your blessing will get it much closer to noon tomorrow. Much like the way you pay your taxes in April. It's all perfect according to consciousness. Am I doing something?
You're on. No.
Give me that one, Dave. Yes, sir. All right. All right, there we go. How's this? Okay.
Perfect.
So we're going to learn about spiritual mind treatment. Many of you are already practicing spiritual mind treatment. Some of you have no idea what it is. So we're starting where you are. The whole idea of the science of mind and making it effective and productive in your life is built around disciplined thinking. Yes, it's a spiritual philosophy, absolutely, and it includes this idea of the divine. But the truth is that it's all about your ability to discipline your thinking according to the formula that we give you. There are 5 steps, and we're going to go through them here in a little while. But first we have to set a context. So what I want to do is first give you a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. There is one mind common to all. One mind. How can that be? How can I be thinking something and you're thinking something and there's one mind? Well, there's one mind. It has many iterations, it has many expressions, but there's only one mind. And that mind is the mind of God. So every thought you have is the thought of God. Every action you take is the action of God. Everything you think is God thinking. There's only one mind. There's only 2 things that God can do. I mean, everything that God can do only falls into 2 categories, very easily. God expresses and God experiences. That make sense? Outward expression, receiving experience. Everything is one of those, too. You know what? That's all you can do, too. You can either express into life or experience life. There's nothing else. There's no middle ground. It's one or the other. So our work is to look at that. To begin by realizing that every time you express something, That's a directive act. That means that you're sending something out into the environment, into the universe, if you want to say. You're creating something. You're creating a thought. You're creating words, a series of words that revolve around some concept that you're thinking. Boy, it's hot today. Just like that. And guess what you're going to feel all day? Hot. Because that's how it works. So, God expresses, we express. God experiences, we experience. In that simple context, everything is present. So we are going to work on how that works in our lives. We're going to look at how that works in our lives, and we're going to do that because this directive action that we do is completely elementally the same as what the divine does. There's no difference. We express into life. You know, the same way that the story of the Hebrew people of God creating the heavens and the earth in 6 days. It's the same idea. It was like they perceived a God that thought the universe into being. And that's what we do. We think our universe into being. It's that simple. Now, the thing that we want to use is, I'm not going to try to control every thought you have. I don't want you to try to control every thought you have. I want you to have a pattern, a formula for disciplining your thought. And by doing that on a regular basis, it kind of bleeds into all of your life. So we start with this idea of scientific prayer. As Dr. Holmes called it, scientific prayer. What does that mean? That means that we're going to collect ourselves, center ourselves, and think something that is going to make a difference. We're going to think something in a certain order to get the outcome that we want. That's our work. That's what we're working on tonight, is to know that formula and use it. It's a proven formula. Let's look at prayer for a minute. Prayer's been around forever. The idea of praying, it goes way back thousands upon thousands of years. And there are certain kinds of prayer that are constantly present in cultures all through time. Who was it? Greg Brady wrote a wonderful book called The Lost Mode of Prayer. And he identified the kinds of prayers we're talking about. Let me give them to you. The first one is called a bargaining prayer. And that's to get out of trouble. And that's where we say, oh God, if you will do this for me, I will do this for you. Or I will never do what I did before again. Whatever it is, we work a deal with the divine. Obviously, that particular way of praying identifies a divine being outside of ourselves that is not all there is, but that has some power over us. So that we think that everything comes from that divine being, and when we make that agreement, oftentimes what happens is that the thing that we wanted to come to us or to be the condition in our lives shows up. So we think now we're bound to this promise that we made to God. And it creates a very convoluted relationship. You know, not a very healthy one, actually. So we probably don't want to spend a lot of time thinking that we can bargain with the divine. That's not a really effective way of doing prayer. The next one's called petitioning prayer. That's when we're looking for answers. That's when we ask this divine entity, whichever one we happen to be caught up in, we ask that for something. And we're willing to get the answer from this source. Like, you know, please tell me what I should do. That kind of prayer where we're petitioning and asking for something, just outright asking for something to either happen or to know something or to get a sign or whatever it is. And that's that petitioning relationship. Still negotiating, working some kind of something out of a relationship with a divine presence outside of ourselves. The third one he identifies is a ritual prayer, and that's for atonement. That's to, again, get out of trouble. Like if you have ever been Catholic in your life, at some level you still are, and that's okay. And there's great beauty in the Catholic faith, and I'm not here to pick on it, but the idea of a ritual prayer is what is often done there. It's saying your Our Fathers or your Hail Marys, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. And by doing that repetitively over and over again, somehow cleanses you. And people do it, and they feel cleansed. Why? Because that idea is set in their thoughts. That if they do those prayers repetitively, however many times they're told, that their life will be okay again. Okay, well, that has its place. But beyond the idea of, okay, I did the penance, and now I'm okay, I don't know that it brings a lot. It doesn't bring a lot to me. But whatever works for folks that do that, that's wonderful. The fourth one is called meditative prayer, and that's really the process of either chanting or being in the silence. And that really is more of a receptive type of experience and doesn't quite fall into the same directive kind of idea that mostly you imagine prayer is that you're reaching out for something. But in the silence, things come. We practice a silence ritual. It's called visioning. It can be very powerful. If you get your ego out of the way and really just open up to possibility, something shows up. Isn't that wonderful? But we don't think it shows up from somewhere else. We believe that it already dwells within us and that it's revealed because we kind of get our thoughts out of the way enough for it to be there. So those are the four that he identifies and he says there's actually one more, and he calls it the lost mode. And in that he says that in many ancient spiritual practices, there is one thing that is consistent always on that mode of prayer that is not one of these other four, is the idea of knowing that something already exists. And they find that in the ancient Hindu scriptures. There are places, even in the Judeo traditions, where that is known. Certainly it's known in the later Buddhism and Christianity by some groups. But the idea is simply knowing that something already exists is perhaps the most powerful and mystical form of prayer. So that's where we're working from tonight. That is the essence of spiritual mind treatment. Spiritual mind treatment is not about fixing. It is not about asking. It is not about looking for something outside of yourself. It is simply about being aware. Being aware of who one is, being aware of what life is as best one can, being aware of the condition that is desired as already present, and accepting that. That's the work. Sounds pretty simple, huh? Well, it is pretty simple. This is not rocket science. At the same time, it requires extraordinary discipline. Because our mind chatter wants to take us to a different place. It wants to take us to a place that says, yeah, but it didn't happen yet. Or, I don't think I'm good enough to get that. I don't think I deserve this. Or any number of possibilities on why that doesn't show up in our lives. And those little tiny, nitpicky little things that we think easily counteract the most beautiful prayer you've ever heard. Because whatever your last thought was, is your prayer. And if you do your prayer work, do your treatment work, and then turn around and think something else, that's your prayer. I remember one of the most profound moments of seeing that really came from Francis Levy, David's dad. And what Francis would do when we were out in the cornfield 100 years ago, he would set up a table, and he would sit behind the table, and people would come to the table, and they would tell him what was going on, and he would do a spiritual mind treatment for them. And they would want to tell the whole story, he'd stop them once he got the gist. And he would know the truth for them. And there would be a thank you, and the person got up and stepped away, and somebody 2 feet away said, "How you doing?" And they went right back into their story. Right back into their story. So that was their prayer. And that's what they got. So the idea of this disciplined thinking is not just the idea, well, it's nice to think this way. It's essential to think this way if you want to see a change of condition in your life. It's absolutely essential. Here's a wonderful quote from Roy Eugene Davis, who is not a religious scientist, who got his training through the great masters of India. And this is what Mr. Davis, who lives down in Georgia, tells us. We pray to God when we think or feel that we are separate from God. When we know God, we pray in God, understanding that prayer is a matter of consciousness, interacting only with itself until higher understanding prevails.
When they pray to any concept of God, results will be in accord with the conviction of one's state, and the degree of surrender of one's illusional sense of selfhood. Although we may pray for improvements of mundane circumstances, the most satisfying experience is realization of God's wholeness, in which nothing is lacking. Is that lovely? Which nothing is lacking. No, he's not, but this, science of mind is universal truth. Holmes gave it a name. He wrote a book called Science of Mind, and we walk around saying it's all science of mind. I'm here to tell you, it's universal truth. And we like to call it science of mind. I love it when people come back from hearing some speaker somewhere in the world and they go, everything they said was science of mind. Well, of course it was, because it's universal truth. And it doesn't matter what you call it. It just doesn't matter. Truth is truth is truth. So thank you, that's a really good point, Cheryl. It's good to say that. Here's a quote from Holmes in the Science of Mind textbook. The power is not so much in the statements we use as it is in the consciousness our words induce. They help us to become aware of that which already exists. The essence of the treatment that we do is not to create something new. It's to create an awareness of what already exists. That's the work. Now that gets a little out of general thinking of people. Because, we're good people. We grew up in families that loved us, most of us. We've done the best we can with our lives, so is everybody else on the planet. And when something gets funky in our lives, the relationship falls apart, we get a diagnosis of a physical thing, we lose our job, we think something's wrong. Everybody does it. The truth is, though, is that we have simply stepped into a perception of life that is different than what we'd like to have. All we have to do is change our perception to what we want to have. When we do, the universe aligns with us. It aligns with everything that we do. Oh, wait a minute now. I've had these problems in my life, and I've really worked to get rid of them. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying this is a process of getting rid of anything. This is simply a process of creating your life according to what you are experiencing. And having the consciousness to know that the way you would envision your life to be is the way it is. Now, we had, 200 people stand up in the room yesterday, maybe more than that, and say that they were in this. And we had 4 or 5 people this afternoon say, hey, this wonderful thing happened to me. My guess is that blessings are happening in your life already from that, and you maybe haven't even seen it. If you indeed have redirected your thoughts to the blessing in your life, that's your work. Now, it happens in all kinds of ways. We hear Tom's stories about winning lotteries and having bones broken one day and not broken the next. They're incredibly poignant stories, and they bring drama to the whole thing because they're not normal. That's not the way most things happen. Yet, that's what happens because someone like Tom or anyone else that experiences those instantaneous shifts of experience have moved into some level of consciousness that allows you to open up to that expression. So what we're doing tonight is we're going to lay out those 5 steps and look at that and begin wherever we are, whether we're very seasoned in doing spiritual mind treatment or if we're just looking at it for the first time tonight. It's important to understand we're not fixing anything because nothing's broken. I love the word perfect. One of my favorite words, but I think it is one of the most misunderstood words in the human language, in the English language. Perfect, it's perfect. Because in our lives we believe that perfect means that all of our expectations were met. Well, that's perfect. Well, that's a lovely way to say it, but that's a very minimal way to experience perfection. The truth is that God is perfect. The divine presence is perfect. And we're going to discover that in a minute in step 1, what that means. But the idea of perfection, I want you to know, is that your life and the conditions in your life right now are a perfect reflection of your consciousness. And if you think that bad things have happened to you and you're holding on to that, you're creating an opening for more bad things to happen to you, according to that understanding. And if you believe that you are the presence of the divine incarnate on planet Earth, you have an entirely different experience. That's where we're working from, is creating disciplined thinking of knowing who we are, knowing what the divine is as best we can, knowing who we are as best we can, and implementing that, utilizing that into the revelation of outcome in our lives. And then we've got these last two things that we'll talk about, gratitude and release, that help that happen, but really the work is in the first three steps. We start with step one. Call out to me what step one is called. Anyway.
Recognition.
Thank you, recognition. Recognizing what? That's one way to look at it. Recognition. I've got a couple words for you. Let's see if we have a drawer full of words. Yes. What can be? Two of my favorite words when I'm teaching. Let me not misspell it. Because I have a PhD, but not in spelling. Pantheism. And some of you I know have heard of this because you've been in my class. Pantheism is a lovely idea that God is all there is. What a great idea. Lots of very intelligent people have thought that God is all there is over the years. They would include the creators of Taoism, poets like William Wordsworth, Walt Whitman, Henry David Thoreau, D.H. Lawrence, Albert Einstein, Frank Lloyd Wright, Carl Sagan, and James Cameron, the movie maker. They all are pantheists. Here's another word. Panentheism. This one is all. Any idea what panentheism is? Do you know? Maybe. Give me a try. What's your name?
Haley.
Haley? What's panentheism?
The opposite?
Well, that's, good for you. Yes. I'll give that to you, Haley. Close anyway. All in God. Now that may seem subtle, but think about it for a minute. All is God says that the universe basically is God, because all we know is the universe. We don't know anything beyond, we have no sense of anything beyond the physical universe. But what if all is in God? Is the universe infinite? Probably not, because it's physical. And we know that the universe is expanding at the speed of light. But what's out beyond it? Well, if there's no time and space beyond the physical universe, we don't know. But it could be possible that this thing that we call God, funny name, came from the German good, Gut. What if God is bigger than that? That means we have to revisit this idea of what God is, and we have to recognize that we can't possibly understand it. So we're not going to try to completely understand God, but we're going to move in a direction that helps us see that all exists within the divine presence. The divine presence is something greater. And it's not a question of physicality as much as there's just more to it than the universe. There are scientists, physicists that say that there are layers and layers of universes. Would that be universi? I don't know. But whatever it is, the idea is that there's more there than we can possibly imagine. And that's a good thing. But there's another part to this. Oh, let me tell you who's into that. Oh, because I have the paper over here and I gave you all the ones on pantheism. Pantheism. Plato, Meister Eckhart, Spinoza, my favorite philosopher, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Ernest Holmes, the writers of the Gnostic Gospels, and especially the Gospel of Thomas is full of pantheistic ideas that presence of God. But it's not just this massive, undefinable, infinite presence outwardly. But there's another element, and this comes from the teacher, Judge Thomas Trower, who said very clearly that the infinite of God not only exists always everywhere, but it cannot be subdivided. You can't break it into pieces. Well, but wait a minute, if I'm God and you're God, isn't it already broken into pieces? No. No. The presence of the divine, this thing we call God, is completely, infinitely present everywhere at the same time. Figure that one out. Well, what I can extrapolate from that is helpful to me is that means all of God is at the point of view. All of God is at the point of view. That means that the power of the divine dwells at the point of view. That means that whatever it is that you're expressing into life must be God expressing into life to create your experience. Not part of God, but all of God. Now that's hard to wrap your mind around, I know. But again, I'm not asking you to understand this. I'm asking you to be open to moving toward these ideas and to embrace them as best you can. It's not a destination. It's a direction. Yes?
Can I just say that the best way that I can put that into my brain so that I can comprehend it is that I visualize God. I've just put myself in the context that I am God, and so I am a cell in God's body. So if I take it as a person's body, then we're all just cells in God's body. So we're all God. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that leans toward panentheism. Okay, I want you to get the thing that might help you make that work. Is in every cell there's a strand of DNA. And that strand of DNA is in every cell in the body. That same essence. So don't stop at the cell. Go all the way to the idea of that DNA strand, or strands that are in that cell are in every cell. Saying that the presence of the divine is in everyone. And it's not like the cells that make up the lungs have just the lung DNA in them. They don't. They have the brain DNA in them, and the liver DNA, and the feet DNA, and all the other parts are in every cell. That's the image. Does that help? Yeah. There you go. That's a pantheistic perception. Good for you. Yeah. All right. So we've got this idea of what.
You got a question?
Yes. We do. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure I understood what you said. Did you say point of view or point of you?
At the point of view.
Of you.
Yeah. And it's not a physical thing. It's like when we say go within. That doesn't mean go into your liver. It means change your focus from your physicality to your spirituality. That's what go within means. Go away from the physical nature of your human presence and move into your spiritual nature where the truth lies. And it's not a physical thing, it's not a place. So this, if you ever hear that, you'll hear it around here a lot. Go within doesn't mean go inside your body. All right? So that work for everybody? I know this is a different way of thinking, but I found it incredibly helpful in my world to be able to do this. So I want to continue with this idea of the presence. And there are the three omnis that many of you know. Spell that right? Omnipresence.
Yes.
That means that God is everywhere. Are you everywhere? Actually, you are. My first spiritual teacher in Australia used to do a little thing with us, and he would have us change our perception from the perception of being in our bodies, looking at the world around us, to being in the body of a seagull flying over Sydney Harbour. I was in Australia at the time. And we could move into a state and do that. What he said was hard, though. What he didn't ask us to do, but told us he had experimented with, is having people go to a point in space where there was no ability to perceive it. It's like, be this point right here. Be this point. Be right where my finger was. Right there, right there, right there. When people try to do that and they really work at it long enough, they get sick. They get nauseous. Because we like being in bodies. That's our way, but we're not our bodies. So the idea of the presence isn't your body. I'm not telling you that that this is about God in your body. Of course, God. Just the cell demonstration speaks to the presence of the divine in your body, but that's not who you are. You are the presence of the divine. You're using that body to be present in physical form on planet Earth, which is where you've chosen to be. Of all the places in the universe, this is the place you've chosen to be with all of these people. And I say that you have great consciousness to want to do that. Omnipresence, you are everywhere. You have a perspective from a point, but you are a non-physical being, so that you must be everywhere. So is the divine. There's no distinction there. Okay? Omnipresent. Omnipresent does not mean that God is with you. It does not mean that you are with God. That doesn't work. You are of God, not with God. So avoid saying that you are with God, because that's a very limiting thought and requires a duality of being with someone. And that's not who we are. Omnipotence. Interesting word. It means all powerful, potent. Are you all powerful? Well, why, yes, you are. Because you are able to think your life into existence, therefore you have the ability to create your life. Now, in a physical experience, this one's hard to demonstrate because we all seem to think that we have edges at the point of our bodies. It's not about our bodies. Our bodies are not omnipotent. Our bodies have very clear limitations. But we, and as the divine, which is who we are, have the ability to create whatever it is that we choose to create. We are all powerful. And we are not separate from this divine presence, so that when you breathe, the energy that it takes to have your chest cavity expand and then contract, and do it again and again, is the presence of the divine. When you raise your hand, when you walk, when you run, when you sit down, any action that exists in physical form is the presence of the divine. But that truly is not the power of the divine. The power is in the ability to think, the ability to perceive life. And from that ability to perceive, we can perceive whatever reality we choose. Again, we live in such a limiting, confining perception of life, being in these human bodies, that we don't get what we can do. And that's okay. But perhaps a little bit at a time, we move beyond that limited perception of what our bodies can do into a greater understanding of who we are. And that we do have the power to create. Omniscience, all-knowing, does not mean that God knows everything you're thinking. Everything you're thinking are the thoughts of God. Everything you're thinking are the thoughts of God. So, whatever you're thinking is the divine thought. Even the ones that you're embarrassed by. Even the ones you wish you hadn't thought or said. Oh God. It can't be outside of God. If God is infinitely present, then there can be nothing else. That's the definition of infinite, is that it has no edges. There's no start or stop to it. It's infinite. So if God is truly infinite, how could anything be outside of that? It can't be. The least of you is your body. The most of you is your awareness of your spiritual nature, which is what I'm talking about tonight. That's the place to go. And we tend to be so tied to our bodies, thinking that's who we are. We go through the human experience thinking that we are the human. My first spiritual teacher, not a religious scientist, not a student of science of mine, never heard of it, probably. But he would tell me, you have a human, but you're not one. And he would say to me, he'd look at me and go, be good to your human. It's an interesting concept, isn't it? So this idea of who we are in spirit transcends our bodies. Our bodies are finite. They have points where they come to life, and they have points where they don't, and they set that down. But we are infinite, eternal beings of love, light. We are the divine presence. And this divine presence is infinite. Therefore, it can replicate itself infinitely into our lives. And it likes it that way. If you get a chance to read my book, there's a whole piece in there about choosing how the universe is organized. You could choose that the universe is organized based on an outside God creating a world so it can watch it, so it can kind of interact with it, so it can walk with Adam or whatever else. That's one perception of how life is. Or did this infinite presence replicate itself enough times so it could have a relationship with itself? And is everything that you're seeing the presence of the divine? And is everything that is seeing that experience the presence of the divine? I like that idea. That really works for me. But again, you can't get this and be at the end of it. This is a process of unfolding, unwrapping, beginning again and again to understand at the levels deeper and deeper and deeper about who we are and what we're here to do. And it isn't that the more you understand this and use this, that somehow you have power over other people that don't. That's not what this is about. This is about the more you understand it, the more you are present with it, the more you are compassionate about it, the more you are in touch with the human experience, because you are no longer in a state of judgment. Because judgment at any point separates you from this understanding. If you find fault in someone else, anyone else, and the current rage is ISIS, you find fault in ISIS for the things that they're doing, if you focus on that, you're bringing that energy into your life. Most people do that. I got caught up in it, sure. I did not see any of the other videos, but I know that they're there, and I know what they've done, and I know that they're doing it to lots more people than 2 Americans in one day. And would it be really easy to fall into judgment about them? Absolutely. That's not my job. My job is to know in the midst of all that looks so ugly, so unconscionable, is God, somewhere in there, waking us up to something. Waking us up. We are waking ourselves up. We are the divine. And it doesn't have a border. There's no place where God is and God isn't. There's no such place. So somewhere in the midst of all that ugliness, all that stuff that just makes our skin, is God. And when we fall into that trap of seeing only fault there, we miss the opportunity to recognize the presence. And we can do nothing. We give up our ability to do anything when we fall into that judgment. It's all about recognizing the presence of God. I made that choice in my life years ago, so that every time I fall into judgment, that's a call for me to find God in the midst of the thing I'm judging. And if I can't, I'm lost. I'm lost. I'm playing in a win-lose world, and there's a good chance I'm going to lose. And I'm not willing to do that. I'm only willing to have the experience of life work for me. So I have to be clear that I will not accept that. That doesn't mean I'm going to flit over to Syria and jump in the middle of that. That would be crazy. I don't want to do that. But I can know from where I am that all there is God, and have no limits on that, and not fall into any kind of trap that's going to limit my ability to know the truth of my life and of life itself. And what I also believe in with absolute certainty is karma. And most people think that karma is punishment for what you've done wrong. That is not what karma is. Karma is experiencing the opposite of what you express. So your experience has to match your expression. So you express out, we do things that harm people and destroy bodies, guess what's going to happen to you? Because you need to experience the other side of it. Do you remember a name Ted Bundy?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Do you know how many times they set him in the electric chair? As many times as people he killed. Why is that? Well, they didn't do it on purpose. They kept putting him in the chair. He's ready to go, whatever level, whatever he's feeling. I don't know what the guy's feeling. And then he gets a stake. He goes back to his cell. A few weeks later, they bring him back. They put him in the chair. They strap him in. Okay, here we go.
Wow.
Stay. Go back to your cell. Every time he had to die. Every time he had to die. If you look at the story of Osama bin Laden, snuck up on in the middle of the night, just like people were snuck up on in New York and Washington. Same thing. That's the way it had to end. Because that was his karma. That was the other side of the experience. Now God's everywhere. So, and I have, we don't teach in our philosophy this idea of reincarnation. But why would an infinite presence only have one experience in a body? So why not experience everything? So I believe that that's how we experience life infinitely, is that there's no end to the possibilities of what we can experience. Perhaps, as Barbara, I think, shared in class or on Sunday once, was the idea of at the end of a life, that you simply pick up another life. And you're going to keep doing that as long as there are lives to pick up. So that all of us are the same one being. We just do it one life at a time. How's that for infinite? What a concept. Okay, I'm probably moving off where I want to go here. We got the omnipresence. We talked about the unity. We talked about Troward. Here's a quote from Troward in his lectures on mental science at Edinburgh, Scotland. If we can conceive of anything entirely devoid of the element of extension in space, it must be present in its entire totality, anywhere and everywhere that is to say, at every point in space simultaneously. Meaning that God is completely present everywhere. And that's who you are. That's why you get to call yourself God. Now here's what doesn't work. If you don't do step one, God is all is God, and you jump right into step two and walk around saying you're God, they will lock you up. And if you work from the concept of step one, recognizing that everything exists in the divine essence of God, you have no choice but to go to step two. What, God's everything but you? That doesn't work. Now, people go into monasteries all over the world, spend their entire lives trying to reconcile these two steps. You can do it tonight, at least to a level of functionality. You can accept tonight that this is the truth, that everything exists within the divine mind of God, and that is who and what we are. And if we can accept that and build on that, as each time we visit, each time we think about it, and take it a little further down the path, then we are on a spiritual awakened path. We are doing the work that the avatars speak of. It's very practical. It doesn't have to be hard. And that's how you do this thing called spiritual mind treatment. Every time, and some people have told me, oh no, I just have the same phrase that I use for step one, and I just go into a state. Please don't fall into that trap. Be present with step one. You don't have it. You don't have it in your conscious mind complete. There's still work to do. So take a little step down the path. What is the presence right now in my understanding? How big is it? How present is it? How poignant is it? How perfect is it? And as best I can get that, in that moment, with whatever words come, I step into that knowing, that's step two. Knowing that I know of the divine is the truth of me. Whatever God is, I am. Has nothing to do with bodies. Whatever I am, God is. However He comes to you. That's the truth. Now the trick is that Holmes was very clear about this. We never say that when we use that word perfect, which I talked about earlier, we never start with perfect man. We always start with perfect God and move to perfect human. because it's based on that. It's the perfection of the divine in this law, this understanding of the workings of the divine in life. All invisible, not seeable, but very present. Greg Braden said it's a matrix. In the book about the divine matrix, he said that that's the law of spirit. He said that that's the place where we create this. There's two basic fundamental concepts on which all religion is based. Well, let's do human. I've learned over the years that works better than me. Okay. And then in this, or whatever word you like, this creates relationship. And if you're going to be protected from this, you need this. And here you are, a human over here. And that most religion that we grew up with and we know about uses this model. And this is how it works. It's the same triangle. That's called the drama triangle. It's the same idea. It really is an erotic concept. Where? Is if we play with a different model. That looks something like this. We have the three elements of the divine, not physically separate, but we identify with the circle, and this is full of fallacy, because the circle implies the infinite universe. Why would you put the infinite universe inside a circle? Well, you have to have something to draw. So you draw a circle and say, that's the infinite universe. And it has three aspects. It has spirit. You have the whole thing spirit. Okay, I know, but it still helps. You have the law. And you have body, form. This model allows you to see how it functions. So what you got, you have a conscious mind. You have what we call the law, but what that really is the subjective mind. And then you have physical form. You also have this as cause, and this as effect. This is the general idea of how the functionality of creation works. So this is where you are. With absolute certainty, you are here. You are not here. That's where your body is. But you are at the point of cause. Now, this is how we get screwed up on this, is we experience something down here, something that we see, starting from as soon as we are consciously able to, once we start getting the sense that we're not our mothers. Down here we observe effects. Well, we do. It's true. A newborn baby doesn't know the difference between themselves and their mother. And you know what? They're right. Is we unlearn it to move into our experience of three-dimensional life. But the truth is that every baby thinks they're the same thing as their mother, and they're right. Okay, so we observe life from here, but this is what we're observing. So we have a thought, and it manifests in form down here. Okay? And then we observe it, and we take that observation back up here. That's where the V comes from. It's not a V. It's a directional projection here. And so here's the deal, is that when we take this information that we observe down here back up here, we're justifying that it's true, and thinking it's true, thinking it's what is, and we recreate it again and again and again. Doing it over and over. And every time we do, we say to ourselves, well, look, there it is. Obviously, that's the way life works. We created it that way. We use this model to create it that way. But the thing is that you have a different thought. If you stop looking down here, which is simply the outcome of whatever happens here, We don't look here, we look here and say, this is the truth of my life. We absolutely believe that. What happens is, as we go down, we get a different experience. We get a different condition. That's all it takes. But we keep doing the repetitive thing, having the same thought over and over again, and this is the beauty of spiritual mind treatment. And that's why we're called New Thought. Get a new thought! That's the point. If you have a new thought, you'll get a different outcome. But you must have a new thought. If you are basing your life on everything you've seen and experienced to this point, you're going to continue to get that over and over and over again. It's time to stop that. And spiritual mind treatment is precisely offered as a way of rewiring your thinking to get a different result. Because the result that you say you want, but you think you can't have, is already there. All you have to do is claim it and know it. And without any question, receive it into your life. That's our work. And it's time for a break. Thank you. I can't find the edges. I'm really not clear who it is, how it is, but I know it is. I know it is. It's everything. I don't know what everything means, but it is. It holds all wisdom, all knowledge, all form, all time, all space. There's nothing else, it's just this. It's in the highest thought and the most basic thought. It's in the greatest and the least. It's all that there is. Everything, everywhere. Creates all things. There's nothing else. It's all there is. And everything that I can imagine dwells within it. That's a thought to work from. Something like that. Just be with it. Let it show up. See where you can go. Like I said, there are millions of monks in the world that spend their day connecting with that, trying to find how they can get closer to that. You know? So spend a little time there. Let it be real for you. It's not about the words, it's about the feeling. And once you've got whatever you're going to get in that moment, you take it into the second step. Knowing that that is all there is, I accept. I surrender to the idea that this must be who and what I am. I humbly receive that awareness of the presence as me, in me, around me, because that's all there is. So I have to, in this moment, open myself to that idea that the perfect, absolute presence of the divine that creates all is what I am. And from that place I speak my word, because my word is God's word. I speak with the authority of the divine. I speak with the weight of the divine in my life right now, knowing that it too is perfect. It always has been. It was perfect on the hardest day, and it's perfect on the greatest day, and I claim the greatest moment right now to speak my word into form, because this is who I am. I want to invite you never to say that you're a child of God. It's a lovely thought. It makes you feel good, but it's a lie. You are the presence of the divine. You are God incarnate. Yeah, the incarnate part, that means you have a body. Sometimes you have a body now. Sometimes you don't have a body. And right now you do. But the more you can connect those two ideas of this infinite presence that is the creator of all, and this is who and what I am, will give you an authority to speak your word into form with absolute confidence, which is where you're going. You're going. So, again, I started with this concept an hour or more ago, that we're not fixing anything. I have some, I'm going to do this in front of students that bother to come to this class and also to their practitioner class and give them a heads up of one of the assignments I'm going to give them down the road. I'm going to give it to you. Give it to you as a, I'm going to require them to do it. I'm going to ask you if you want to do this. I want you to find something in your life that really works well. You like your car, you like your partner, you like your job, I don't care what it is. Find something you really, really like and you really feel confident about. It's going to be there. It's there right now. Feels really good. I want you to treat for it for a week, every day. Why? I want you to treat for it. I want you to do a spiritual mind treatment for that you already have. Why would I do that? Because that's how treatment works. Because what you're going to treat for, no matter what it is, already exists. This is going to get you into a state of consciousness to know what that's like. To say, I have the greatest car. It's a beautiful car. It gets me everywhere I want to go. I can rely on it. It's got low mileage and it drives like a dream and I can't wait to get in it and go somewhere. And then you finish your treatment, you look outside, and there's the car. Every treatment should work just like that. So create what we call a mental equivalent for your treatment work. So you already have it. It's already there. And if you do that enough days, you'll get to the place where you'll expect to open your eyes and see whatever it is that you're treating, which is the point, because it already exists. The question is, when are you going to have it in your perception, in your physical presence, if that's what it is, if it's a physical thing. Doesn't matter what it is. The beauty of it is that every possibility already exists. When are you going to be ready to get it? If you're speaking with the power of the presence of God, if your words are God's words and you're beginning to believe that, how could it not show up in your life? Now, not everything is going to show up immediately because not everything fits together that way. It has more of an elegance to it than to just poof, it's there. That's for cartoons. But sometimes it does, and it dazzles us when it does, and that's lovely. And we've had it happen a lot in this community. We've had Tom and his experiences, but we've had cancerous tumors be there one day and gone the next. We've had people that had dire straits that are suddenly millionaires. We had in this community people who were in dire financial straits and became millionaires because they shifted their perception. All it took. Why not? So how do you do that? Dr. Holmes and his teacher, Thomas Troward, came up with a list of the aspects of God, the elements of God, the attributes. That's what I'm looking for. The attributes of God. They say that there are 7. I think there's lots more, but these are the primary ones. Let's talk about them. Peace. So peace is the presence of God. What about wars? Well, there's this thing about peace, that all through the human experience, there has always been the presence of peace. Even in world wars, not everybody was at war. So there has always been peace on this planet. Wars come and go. They have starting points, they have ending points. There's no start of peace on the planet. There may be a start of peace with a certain place or a certain group of people. But you can always find peace on this planet. And one interesting thing is as we're evolving, there's been work done by some Harvard researchers that has proven statistically and factually that we are at the most peaceful time in the history of humankind. And that there's clearly a delineation of peace over the decades and the centuries, that we have gotten more and more peaceful over time. Now, why we don't recognize that is because we've also become more instantly given information about what's not working in the world. Yeah, I mean, so it's not just the media, it's the internet. It's like we can find out about all the problems in the world every time we want. Most of the generations that came before us, in fact, all of them, could not share information that quickly. And because of that, they had more aggression and had more wars. And even though we see what's happening in the Middle East, We know about those things. We hear about violence in this country. Sure, we hear about that. But actually, overall, things are getting better on planet Earth. There's less violence. We are more at peace. So peace becomes the constant that we can count on. So if there's a situation where people are not identifying peace, we actually have the ability to know peace. And it's not that we're trying to get aggression or war to be peaceful. We're claiming what already exists, peace. So, and this is in our personal relationships, in our personal lives, in our way of being in the world. It's the nature of the human experience as much as it is an attribute of God. Peace. Power. God is omnipotent, so all power is God. Now, this is the word to use over anyone. It's not having power over. That's not what this is about. This is about knowing. This is actually the awareness of knowing who we are. We find our power in knowing that we are the presence. And whenever we think that we can't, all we have to do is remember who we are. And there is no can't. There is no can't. Whatever we set our intention clearly to achieve, we can achieve. We have the power within us to do that, without exception. Now, do we live like that? Mostly not. We whine a little bit about how hard things are, wish that people would do what we'd say, and blah, 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 blah. But the truth is that when we're clear about who we are, and we set an intention, we get the outcome that we seek. Strangely, this experience of being president of Centers for Spiritual Living has been a wonderfully enlightening experience for me. I actually had a couple of people who were elected about the same time I was, in fact they were, the same day, who just decided they didn't want me to be the president of the organization, and put a lot of energy into making me wrong and trying to get rid of me. A lot of energy. And at first I thought, why is this happening to me? I went through, I said, wait a minute. I'm creating this at some level. I mean, they have their thing, for sure, but I'm creating this at some level. So I went through a great deal of finding God in them, seeing the presence of the divine, seeing that they are on a perfect path of doing and receiving exactly what is theirs to receive. Interestingly, in the 2.5, going on 3 years that I've been in this office, they are the only two that have ended up leaving their elected position before their term was complete. Huh. I didn't want that for them. I didn't ask that for them. I just saw the God of them and refused to be in an aggressive stance and refused to try to make them do anything. I forgave them. I forgave me. I moved into as clean a place as I could so that every time I saw them, I could just love them. And they are both gone. That's power. Because when we try to bully people, that doesn't work. That creates people bullying us. But here's the deal. When you love somebody, one of two things are going to happen. Either they're going to receive and be blessed in the presence of you and be good with that, or it's not going to work for them and they're going to leave. Either way works, under any circumstance. So, don't be a victim. Use your power. Beauty. There's a song, isn't there? Everything is beautiful. Probably drug-induced, but it doesn't matter. Ram Dass's whole point was that you can have that spiritual experience without the drugs. He's right. Everything is beautiful. You can find, and what is beauty? Beauty is the presence of the divine. You can see it. You can, that's the thing, is that your eyes perceive beauty. So you can see God as beauty everywhere, in everyone. Even on a shiny head. Isn't that lovely? God's everywhere. And it's all beautiful. Now, are there ugly things in the world? Yes. But ugliness tends to show up and then dissipate. Based on our judgment. So is there ugliness in the world? Well, it shows up, but it's the illusion. The constant is beauty. And anyone that looks around this planet will find beauty very easily. Doesn't take much at all. So the constant is beauty. The idea of anything that is less than that, anything that does not have an aesthetic, is a temporary condition that will go away. So God is beauty. God is love. I actually think this one defines God more than anything. Now, and I had a conversation with someone just a few moments ago about love and God. If God is love, then when we don't perceive love, does that mean that God's not there? Well, of course not, because all you're doing is not perceiving love. Love is the constant. Love is always present. And I don't even though every day of my life I say to Barbara, I love you, it's not an action statement. I'm not looking to love her as a thing that I do. I am aware of the presence of God when I look into her eyes, when I hear her voice on the phone. To me, the awareness of the presence of God is love. Love is the essence of the divine, so that it's always present. There is nowhere where there's no love. Somebody says that they have no love in their life. What they don't have is an awareness of love in their life. Because love is not something that we exchange. It's the presence of the divine. I had a shaman from South America describe love as the energy that holds the atoms together. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because the one thing that physicists haven't figured out is what friggin' thing holds this atom together? Why does it do this? We don't know. And he said, well, that's love. Love is the glue that holds the universe together. I'm going, that works for me. And where are there no atoms being held together? Well, in the physical universe, they're everywhere. Even in space, filled with atoms, flying around, molecules, all this, all being held together. With what? Love. Okay. So all you have to do, if you want to experience love, is open up to it. It's always there. It isn't about your partner. It isn't about your family. It's about being aware of the presence of God. So that's what love means to me. So we got peace, power, beauty, love. Joy. Joy is the next one. Now that's something that we demonstrate around here a lot, because it's a synonym for joy is happiness. And so everybody comes here on Sunday says today is a happy day. That's not an accident. The idea is that our nature is to be happy. The times that we seem not to be happy is where we have perceived that our expectation has not been met. We have a way that we want life to be, and it's not that way. Therefore, we choose to be unhappy. That is a choice. The natural state of the human experience is joy. And if you stay in this idea that you are creating your life from here and not from here, joy is an absolute. Now, do we have moments where we set down our joy? Of course. If we're grieving over the loss of someone we love, we tend to set down our joy. But just for a little while. Because truly, if we are going to be true to ourselves and the people that we love that leave, we're going to go back to joy. So joy is a natural state. The next one, Holmes and Troward split on. One called it light and one called it life. Doesn't matter which way you go, it's the same thing. Because we're not actually talking about electrons flying into our eyes, leaving an impress on our cornea. Is it cornea? Whatever's in the back of your eye, and going into your brain as an upside down perception. That's not the light we're talking about. We're talking about the elemental presence of light as light. And when we stand up in front of the center every week and talk about shining our light, that's our life. That's what I believe that's what Jesus was talking about when he talked about bushel baskets and such. So the idea is, don't live demurely, unnoticeable. Be here to do the thing you're here to do. Shine your light. That's our work. And that we're all here to do it. There's not a one of us that came here to be passively unattached to the experience of being human on planet Earth. We came here to do something. Some of us do big things, some of us do more gentle things that maybe affect one or two people. It doesn't matter which it is, just do it. Make sure you're on purpose with your life and you're fulfilling that part, because that is who we are here to be. We're here to be alive. We're here to shine our light. We're here to do that is ours to do, that nobody else can do, only us. And then the final one on the list is wisdom. And wisdom is more than information, it's what you do with the information. But it's important to know that you do know what to do. If God is omniscient, then there is the all-knowingness of life, which we can tap into at any moment. Now, in our conscious minds, we do not carry all information. But there's nothing that we cannot know. There's nothing, when we remember that we are tapped into the one mind, anything can be revealed to us, or go from that subjective state into a conscious awareness of who we are. Anything. And the best way I receive information is consciously to do it as I'm waking up in the morning. And what I'll do is I'll ask myself a question before I go to sleep, knowing full well that when I'm waking up, something will come to me, because I have some conundrum that I'm dealing with, something that I haven't figured out yet. But that information is available to me. And it's not outside of me, because there's only one mind. So knowing that that's so, I can simply state that going to sleep and then wake up, and before I'm fully awake, sometimes it's like somebody's talking to me. But it's really something going on in my conscious mind that is allowing me to have that information. I'm opening myself to it. Yeah. I mean, I, like many, love the idea of angels, but I'm not going to rely on them. I'm going to rely on this model to carry me through my life. So all information, and then what you do with that information is essential to the process. How do you apply the information you receive? And I'm getting better at it. I think we're all getting better at it. Not to just blurt things out when I have an answer, but to allow it to evolve and to emerge. And letting everyone that wants to be a part of it without me always having the answer. That is a sign of immaturity, to think you've always got the answer. You do. But if you're working with other people, and most of us do in life, it's really good to include them. Like, what do you think? Quite amazing, you know? And what I found is that what will ultimately come out of any of those conversations is pretty much what came to me. And I don't have to be the one that said it. Peace, power, beauty, joy, love, light, wisdom. Maybe not exactly in that order. Those are the elements, those are the attributes of God, according to Troward and Ernest Holmes. So what do you do with those? We're in step 3. You've explored this idea of this infinite presence. You have identified yourself in the midst of that presence, and now you speak with that authority. Something's going on. Whatever it is that's going on that causes you to move into this treatment, whether it's some discomfort, some dis-ease, whatever it is, the idea here is that you're going to move beyond that relative state of experience into something that dwells in truth. Here's another element of this model. Truth is here. Facts are here. That's an important distinction, because there are lots of facts in life. The difference between facts and the truth is that facts change. They change all the time. It's raining. It stopped raining. It's windy. It's not windy anymore. What is it in your life that is a fact? Virtually anything that you can experience in physical form is about facts. Truth, on the other hand, is constant. These are statements of truth. This directs us to an understanding of the presence. Now, if I would have been around when they pulled this off, I would have added this one. We live in an abundant universe. Extraordinarily abundant universe. And anyone that thinks in limiting terms is living here. We don't have enough money. Well, Yes, we do. We always have enough. We always have more than enough money. That's the truth because I live in an abundant universe. Now that doesn't mean that I'm going out and spending money like that. It means that I know that the idea that we don't have enough money is a limiting thought that I don't want to participate in. So let's figure out where we can see it differently. Yes, Reese.
I just had a quick question. Did I miss when you described what 2 was? Because I heard the recognition and then.
It's identification. It's identification is the name of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably didn't. Step 2 is identify yourself within the presence. Now, if you want to go back there for a minute, Holmes had other names for it that he used. The one that kind of caught on mostly in our movement is unification. I don't know how to unify with the unity. How was I at some point ununified? It doesn't make sense to me. And what they'll say, well, you're unifying your thought with this. I don't want to play that game. I want to identify myself as the presence. So that's what really works for me, is what I call step 2, is identification. Identify myself in and as that presence. Yes?
I feel the same way about the word treatment, because, to me, that's like a medical model, and there's something wrong, and I'd rather call it a divine ritual or something.
Well, call it what you want, I don't care.
I'm just saying, if you think about treatment, it's...
Well, what you want, I really don't care. Yeah, don't call it treatment. Please don't call it. I don't ever hear you call it treatment. I won't. Okay. What I want to know is that this works, and it does.
And step 2, some people call it recognition.
No, step 1 is recognition.
Oh, realization.
No, that's step 3.
Yeah, I got
Let's
it.
go ahead and go to step 3 because we are running out of time. I knew this was going to happen. Okay, 3 names for step 3 that have been popular over the years. The first one is affirmation.
Realization.
Stay with me for a second, Jane. The first one is affirmation, and that's the idea that you're affirming, that you're making something firm. You're taking it from the idea into the physical form. Affirmation. It's a great word, but it takes some work. It sounds working to call it an affirmation. The other one, even more, is a powerful word, but it obviously requires some energy, and that's called declaration. Now, me, I like declaration. I like to declare something is so. And it's not that it doesn't work, but Jane's right. Realization is the one to use. Because when you realize something is so, it's effortless. I just realized that this is the way it is. It's like, it doesn't take anything. And it's not like you're making anything happen. You're simply realizing what already is. So that really does work. Realization is a great name for this. So we like to use that as our name for step 3. Now there's more rules in step 3 than anyone should ever have to do, but we're going to do them anyway. And they are important because they set a kind of way of doing this that really does work. So when you're doing a spiritual mind treatment, when you're treating yourself, which is really just about shifting your consciousness, which I think is the name of this class. Something about shifting. The art of shifting. This is how you do it. And it's going to sound weird to your logical mind to do it this particular way. Well, maybe not the first one, but we're going to start right at the top and say that there are 4 elements here. The first one is that your statement in step 3 is personal. Which means that you're going to use words like I or me. Many people get into this and they immediately want to start treating other people without permission. That's dangerous. Don't do that. Treat yourself. Then when you get really good at it, somebody will come to you and say, would you treat for me? Then you have a contract and agreement. But you always speak in I and me terms. Some people actually go to the point of actually just saying their name as though they are detached from and watching this life beneath them. But I like to use the words I or me. I know the truth. This is what's true for me, my life, those kind of words. The second one is present. You treat in the present. This is the one that gets weird in your brain. Because I know right now with absolute certainty that every cell in Breezy's body is healthy and whole. And, and Breezy's sitting over there going, let's just do it to myself, let me not do it to Breezy. I know that every cell in my body is healthy and whole, vibrantly healthy, working in unison, exactly the way it was designed, every muscle, every organ, every bone, everything about my body. And at the same time as I'm saying this, there's pain. Well, that's inconsistent. Shouldn't I treat that it's going to get better? No. Why is that? Why don't we treat that something is going to be better? Why don't we treat that on Tuesday something's going to happen?
Because tomorrow never comes.
There is no tomorrow. There's only today. Will anybody go to tomorrow? No. If you know how to go to tomorrow, you get up here and teach this class. All of us are simply always in now. That's where we are. Point. We're always in now. Now is where we treat. We treat now this is so. And we experience it in that now moment. It's not that when we close our eyes, I love to close my eyes, not everybody does, but I close my eyes in my treatment and I say, in that third step, I know that this is true now. I experience it now. I feel it now. I see it now. It's all happening now. There's nowhere else to be except right now. And I'm not checking the calendar. This is not about time or space. This is about being in the moment where the condition is revealed. The condition that you're choosing, that you're knowing, that you're revealing, which is the highest way to do it, you're revealing that awareness right now. Goals always have a date to them. You know, I will achieve blah, blah, blah by January 2015. You know, that's a goal. Treating is not goals. Treating is now. You got nothing to work with but right now. But trust me, that's all you need. Because that's where it will happen. Because the moment that physical revelation of that condition that you are calling forth by revealing the truth, when you see it in front of you, guess when that's going to be?
Now.
It's going to be now. Bingo. Haley, I want you in all my classes. Where am I over here? Okay, positive. This is an interesting one. Now that does not mean that our treatments are about being happy. Happy, nothing wrong with happy, but that's not what positive means. The example I use for positive is a magnet, bar magnet. One side's positive, and one side is negative, right? That's a magnet, right? Do you know what that physically means? Does that mean that this is the bad side? No, of course not. There's no bad side. There's only, there's these ends of the magnet, the poles of the magnet are the way that the molecules in the magnet line up, and that on the positive end is the flow of the energy through the magnet. Flow of neutrons through the magnet. That's what makes the magnetic field hold. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on what we want, not what we don't want. Treatment is not to get rid of something, ever. And that's when Holmes talks about turning away from the condition. It's simply, look at what you want and focus on that. Reveal that in your life. Don't try to get rid of, and how many people come to me for treatment and say, all I want is to get rid of this thing. Well, what do you want? I want to get rid of this thing. You know, they're all caught up in the negative. My Native American teacher, Will Rockingberg, gave me this wonderful picture in my mind of how to do that. And if you want to try to get away from something, tie a rope around a tree and pull on that rope with all your mind. Scream at that tree to let go. That's what you're doing when you say, I don't want this in my life anymore. The focus of your thought in that moment is the thing you don't want. And you're saying you don't want it. And you're not getting the I don't want part. There's nothing there. There's only the object of your thought. That's what you're creating. So every time you say I don't want this in your life, you're more securely having it in your life. So stop saying what you don't want. Focus on what you do want. That's what a positive is in a treatment. So even though there's pain, you're never treating for the pain to go away. You're treating for the ease and workability of that part of your body. That's what you're working on. So, positive. Personal, present, positive, and I should know without looking, but I'm not.
Precise.
Precise. precise is another interesting one. So let's use a really mundane thing. Excuse me, Chuck. A new car. So if you're treating for a new car, I had a guy in the community here come to me. He had just gone through a bankruptcy. He wanted a new car. He found a new car. He wanted me to treat for him to get that car. I said, I can't do that. What if that's not your car? No, it's my car. The guy told me he would give me the loan even without checking my credit. And so this is my car, so treat that I get this car. No, I can't do that. What I can treat is that you have the perfect car that works for you. You have a car that is reliable. You have a car that is well maintained. You have a car that is in good working order. You have a car that is fun to drive. We can have lots of qualities, and the precision is about the qualities, not about the specific thing. Don't treat the specific thing. So what happened was I wouldn't do that for him, but I did treat for him to have the car that best served him, that ran well, and whatever else put it in the treatment. And 3 days later, he came to me and said, "You're not going to believe what happened." I went back to that guy, and he had sold the car. And I was down on Patton Avenue, and one of those car lots had the exact same car. And they were willing to sell it for $300 less and finance it for me. Well, there you go. Don't treat specifics. I actually know a guy in Florida that treated to be in a relationship with a specific woman. He made it. He was in a relationship with her. It almost killed him. Treat the specific qualities that you're calling into your life. Treat the way it makes the way you feel. Treat the way it works in your life. But let all the faces and the specifics of that are things not be present. Work from the qualities and be very specific about the qualities. You know, if you want it to be paid off, say, and it's paid off. You know, whatever it is, but positive and precise. Any questions about those 4 things, because they're important? Yes, Haley? Everything. Absolutely. Okay. All right, we're going to finish this up real quick. Those are your 3 steps. That's what Holmes did. Holmes worked with those 3 steps. One of his students came to him, a man named Dr. Moen. I'll say it wrong. Owen was his last name. And anyway, he came to him and said, my students are wanting to get a little more of this, so we're going to add these last 2 steps. We're going to be grateful for this that we have seen, and we're going to let it go. And Holmes said, okay. And so that's where we got 5 steps. But they actually really work. The 3rd step we call realization. The 4th step you can call gratitude or thanksgiving. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's the idea of being grateful for what you just created, what you just saw, what you just know and reveal into your life. To be grateful for it. Why would you do that? Because it's nice? No, it's not about nice. It's about the idea that when you're grateful for something, you're telling your mind that you already have it. Because you're never grateful for things you don't have yet. You're grateful. You know, if I say to Sandra, would you please go get me a glass of water? She'd say, certainly. And off she'd go and go, thank you. I'm not thanking her for the water. I don't have it. I'm thanking her for going to get it. And then she would come back and she would hand me the water and I'd go, thank you. Because now I have water. I was thankful for different things there. That's why it works. It tells your mind that you've got it. So be grateful for it, as grateful and deep. And also, most of what we're doing in treatment seems to be mental. It's called mental science. And when you get to gratitude, you've moved into emotions. You've moved into the feeling of gratitude. And it's lovely. It kind of includes your heart in it. And many people say, no, I'm in my heart the whole time. And that's true. But it really does create this lovely connection of heart and head. So it's a nice thing to do. And it really does work. It has an impact on making it real. Because what I am grateful for, I already have. And that's true in my life. So when I am grateful in my treatment, I have it. I have it right here in my life. And it's very real. The idea of release, we don't have time to go into the details of it, but the idea of release is, it's none of your friggin' business how this happens. Because all you have in your life is what's happened so far. And you knew how that happened. But if you're going to limit yourself to what's happening in your life, you're not going to get much farther. So you have to let it go. You have to know it's so and let it go so that you are out of the way. I'm out of the way. It's going to show up however way it's supposed to. And it often comes in a way you couldn't possibly have imagined, you couldn't possibly have planned, you couldn't possibly have manipulated to get that outcome in that way. And yet, there it is. You know, whatever it takes. That's the reason you let it go. You do not immediately finish your treatment and then say, okay, how are we going to get this going? Now, it doesn't mean that you're not actively involved in that creation, and you're not open to it, and you're not seeing it come into your life. You continue to do all that work, but you don't get into the how. The how is none of your business. It will reveal itself. You keep doing what you're doing. You keep going to work. You keep being in that relationship, and whatever it is that you're planning to sow will envelop that experience, however it's supposed to. So let it go. And that's the spiritual nature. And so it is. And yeah, that's how we, if anybody hasn't heard it, and so it is our little way of saying amen. And some people in this movement say, and so it is, amen. I don't know why. But the idea, think about the idea, and so it is. I'm just saying it's so. And I can let it go. So that's spiritual mind treatment. Anybody who learned something tonight? Excellent. Thank you so much for being here, being a part of this. We've got about 4 minutes, and we're going to pass these baskets and give you an opportunity to support this center. What you think about what you got tonight? Most of the classes that are taught in Science of Mind centers around the country, I'll speak only in North America here, are offered for hundreds of dollars up front. You pay. You register for the class and you put your hundreds of dollars up and then you come to class. We have never done that in this center. We do it with our practitioner classes, but we actually charge more than the recommended amount. That's because we want everyone completely engaged in that process. Now, on our Monday night class, we never charge a fee. At the same time, we encourage you, for your good, as well as the good of this center, to be generous. Because your generosity in this class is telling your subjective mind that you got a lot. Because you're going to put a lot in, therefore you must have got a lot coming here. And what that does is it makes that you got tonight, and any night that you come here, richer for you. And it also pays the bills around here. So thank you for being so generous. Thank you for coming to this center and being a part of this good work that we do. Thank you for taking what we give you and going out into the world and making it work. Your life working better is the best prize we get. And thank you for loving us enough to support us so that we can pay the bills around here. So take what it is you're going to give tonight. Hold it in your hand, maybe close to your heart, and know with me this wonderful thing. Know with me that the presence and the power of the divine is right here. It's right here as much as it is anywhere in the entire cosmos and beyond. That presence is so powerful, so clear, so beautiful, so wonderful. And I declare that that power is you. So as we pass these baskets, let's do this in a very conscious way. Let's do it letting the love flow in this room. Let's let this giving be not only generous but joyous. Let's let this giving be an opportunity to know the truth of who we are. This is who we are. We are love, we are light, we are beauty, we are peace, we are power. We let that be so right now in this giving, and so it is. Let's receive them in a wonderful way. I am so grateful for everyone that has come to this class, everyone that seeks to have that better life. As Dr. Holmes said, every day is an opportunity to have a little bit better life. And that's what we do. We seek to have that better life. So we do that by recognizing the presence in us, all around us. We do that by joyously accepting the blessings of our lives every day, in every way. What a joyous thing it is to wake up and know the truth of who we are, and to live in that truth every day. So I receive these blessings joyously for this center and know that they come from those that are blessed. and that God continues to reveal itself in us and all around us through who we are this day and every day. We live in that blessing forevermore, and so it is. Thank you, everybody. This was fun.